Hello and welcome to a new video. In today's video I am going to be trying out these new pens from Ohuhu. If you've been on my channel for any length of time, you know that I am a big fan of acrylic markers. That is what these are today. These are refillable acrylic markers. This is something that Ohuhu likes to keep in mind when it comes to its products. They have made refills for alcohol markers in the past, so it's really cool that they are doing the same thing with acrylic markers. So these are what the pens look like. There are 36 in this set, and each one comes with a refill. The idea behind them is that you unscrew the end. As you can see, it has little arrows on it marking which way to unscrew it. It's recommended to do this when the pen is empty, because otherwise you are likely to have an accident, as I did when I tried it with the purple. You then open this. Yeah, it has a cap to seal the, so it doesn't get messy. It also has a proper seal to prevent any liquid from getting out. The code for the colour is on the bottle the same way it is on the pen, so it's very easy to identify which one is which. And the nibs are just like a thick bullet nib kind of thing. Before we properly get into this video, I do want to be fully transparent. This video is sponsored by Ohuhu, but that is not going to change any of my opinions. You guys know that I always like to be very, very honest about the products that I try out on this channel. So if there's anything I don't like, I'm going to tell you. And if there's anything I do like, I'm going to tell you. So you can trust that that's not going to change anything about my opinions on these pens. So this set that I am trying out today is the 36 colour set. There is quite a nice range of colours as usual. And as usual, I personally feel like it is limited with the purples. I always like having way more purples. It also comes with this nice little pocket that holds spare nibs, as you can see here. Some instructions on how to use the pens, which is also written on the pens themselves, which is very handy. And then of course my favourite part, the swatch sheets, and it comes in white and black, which shows you how they show up on different coloured backgrounds, which I love. So if you're interested in trying these pens out for yourself, there will be links down in the description. So these pens were really easy to swatch. I felt that the ink or paint came out of them a lot easier than other pens I've tried in the past, which was refreshing, honestly. These are pump action pens, which means you have to push the nib to activate the paint and to get it flowing. So now I am moving on to what I actually plan to do in today's video. So I have these two wooden coasters because I thought it would be nice to test out how the pens work on those. And I am going to start by planning some ideas on what to do on the coasters. Don't mind that my page already has a drawing on it. This is a character that I've recently made up. They are going to be featuring in my Draw This in Your Style challenge for hitting 100k on this channel. More will be explained about him there. So I am just starting by thumbnailing some ideas on circles. As you can see, I'm starting with a death's head moth because I thought that might be kind of cool, but then as I was sketching it, it just wasn't hitting for me exactly what I wanted, and because I had been sketching my little wolf magician dude, I was kind of more in the mood for something along those vibes. So for my second sketch, I am doing a little curled up mouse with a cute hat, because they are a character that kind of came about while I was sketching my wolf magician. I thought it would be really cute to do him for this video because I won't be doing him for the Draw This in Your Style video, so I thought I'll do a video for him now and do a video for the wolf later, and they both get one. This little guy doesn't really have much of a story, just that he kind of gets picked on by the wolf dude, and I decided to name him the Duke because I thought it was like such a grand name for such a small creature. So I really like this image of him curled up, and what I struggle with a lot in this video is deciding what the base he should be on looks like. So that is what the purple blue circle that I was colouring in is a test for. These paints stay wet for quite a while, which is a little bit of an issue when I do stuff like wiping my hand through it, but that means that I have to wait for things to dry. So as you can see, I have moved on to doing a little sketch of him and colouring that in, because I also wanted to get an idea of what his colour scheme will be with these pens. You may also notice that there is some crazy pilling going on these pictures. That has nothing to do with the pens, that is all to do with my sketchbook. It is a very cheap sketchbook, so it gets pilled very easily. But thankfully that kind of thing doesn't bother me, but I know that it bothers a lot of you, so I just wanted to kind of address it. That is all to do with my sketchbook. So now, while I'm still waiting for the other things to dry, I am moving on to another idea for the base down here. This is kind of like a starburst idea. I got inspired by some things that I saw on Pinterest. If I can find the images again, I will put them up on the screen. Then while I'm waiting for that one to dry, I am sketching another idea. Trying to stick with the vibes that the magician wolf and the mouse give me. I wanted to do a kind of clown character, because if you couldn't tell already from my sketches, a lot of my sketch goes over the border of what would be the coaster. I am planning to incorporate some more 3D elements in today's video, using some clay. So I thought it would be such a cute idea of a character that is like surrounded by ruffles and like buried beneath them, and try and make the 3D elements a big part of the art. Yeah, so at this point I was really liking this star idea more than my original purple squiggle idea, so I was thinking that is probably where I was going to go with the base for the mouse. So for now I wanted to do a bigger version of my clown character, because I really liked how he was looking. So I decided to do it the actual size he would be, plan it all out in my sketchbook, figure out his design properly. And this was also to help me so that I didn't have to draw it again. I traced him. So I was going to do it a sort of transfer thing onto the coaster. This also meant that I wasn't going to make tons of mistakes and rub out on the coaster. I could do all that in my sketchbook and then get a clean version on my coaster. So I just was trying to think ahead and make life easier for myself. So now I wanted to just prime the coasters, because I didn't want them to just soak up the pens, because they are wood. They will soak everything up. But as is the way with me, I put on way too much paint. So I ended up priming quite a few coasters, because I did not want to waste that at all. I just don't know what's wrong with me. I get caught up in the moment of squeezing out paint, thinking, hey, this is fun. And then I'm like, wait, that was way too much paint. And I just can't seem to get over doing that. So now that I have to wait for those to dry, I decided to go back to my sketchbook and start colouring in the drawing of the clown, so that I had an idea of the colour scheme that I wanted to do, because again, it's much easier to do that in my sketchbook than do it all on the coaster and potentially make a mess of things. As I said, getting finer details with these pens can be quite tricky, so I decided to do a little cheat skill, like what is it called? Hack that I've seen people do quite a lot, where they use the pen on a palette and then they use a paintbrush to go in and add the extra details like that. I think this works really nicely together with the pens, because then you get the really nice coverage from using the nibs, which can do small details depending on the size of the picture you're doing, but then using the brush with it just helps give it a nice finish that I was desperately needing. And yeah, I just think it looks really nice together. So now that the coasters are dry, it is time to get back to transferring the sketch, and to do this I needed to have some pencil on the opposite side of the picture so that there would actually be something to transfer onto the coaster. So I did that in the back of my sketchbook, where I'm very messy back there. I then stuck the tracing paper onto the coaster and yeah, just drew it again. So I've drawn this guy like, how many times? 1, 2, 3, about 4 times, not including the tiny picture. It can be a little tedious at times, but thankfully this drawing is incredibly simple, but it just made everything a lot easier for me. I then went in with this bright pink to seal in the pencil drawing, but also give it like a nice base coat in case anything showed through when I got to the colouring stage. And I did the same with the other one, even though I hadn't drawn on it. And now, while the pink is drying, I am moving on to the 3D stage. So I have this air dry clay that an old colleague of mine bought for me. That I just never got around to using, but I thought for this it might be perfect. It is incredibly soft, which I personally need. Typically I use Super Sculpey, but that can be quite hard to get it to be malleable, and I have issues with my wrists, so this was perfect for me. It did not hurt my wrists at all, so I might go forward using it more in the future. But I rolled it out. It is a very messy medium, so I used a plastic sheet to kind of etch the shape that I wanted for the hat, which I then cut out with this tool I have. And I was struggling because this material is so soft. It is quite hard to get crisp edges, at least for me personally, because I'm very new to this medium. But it was working out quite nicely, and it is very easy to fix if you make a mistake. So I was trying to attach the diamond here, which is very, very loosely attached, but for now it was working out. I then moved on to making the ruffles for the clown. Similar to how I was doing it with the hat earlier, I put a plastic sheet this time over the drawing, and I tried to use it as a guideline to make these ruffles. This was so tedious. I, for some reason, had in my head that it would be incredibly easy, but it's not. Trying to do this on a flat surface and make them look like they're coming out was tricky. So they are very, very ugly. They get fixed a little bit later, but for the most part they are janky. So now it is time to move on to the mouse, and this is what I was really, really looking forward to. I don't do it much on this channel, but I actually really, really love sculpting things, so doing the mouse was something that I am much more confident with than the ruffles, for example. And I started by making this kind of form for him out of foil and masking tape. This was going to help me have a sturdier form because the air dry clay is so flimsy, but also it means I'm not wasting a ton of the clay. So with this little mummified looking mouse, I covered him with just a base layer of clay to make sure that he was completely covered. I didn't bother covering the bottom of him because that's going to be covered by the coaster, so there's really no point. Because of the colour of this clay, he's kind of looking like a turd, which is lovely. And this stuff is getting everywhere, so I look like I have turd hands, which is so fun. It stained my nails for days, which was not a pleasant colour to have my nails be, so that was unfortunate. But he was coming together quite easily. I was having so much fun. I did spend like 3 hours doing this sculpting stuff, but I enjoy doing it so much that I wasn't even aware. I was just so in the zone and just focused. That's something I really, really love about sculpting, is how I like doing stuff that uses my hands like this, and I really like just shutting down my brain for ages. So this was so much fun to do, and I managed to get him in a shape that I really, really liked. And with the leftover clay that I had pulled out, I created a little star and a sparkle. So that stuff takes a while to dry. Honestly, it actually needed a week for the mouse, so it took ages. So while I was waiting for that to dry, I got started on colouring in the coasters. So for the boy, he is going to be coloured except for his ruffles and his hat. So I just did exactly the same as what I had done in my book. So there's not really much more to be said about this. It's pretty straightforward. Except maybe for the fact that, as you can probably see, the paint does look like it's cracking a little bit. I think because a lot of paint comes out of these pens sometimes, it can be a little hard to control that. So when they dry, it is like a slightly 3D texture that can crack. So after that, I am then moving on to the sort of starburst thing that I spoke about. This was really fun to do. Again, I just copied how it was in my book. I did then realise that most of it would be covered by the mouse. So I finished making the coaster, but I don't end up using it with the mouse because I didn't want the entire thing to be covered, because it kind of makes it all pointless. So after about a week of drying, I sanded down the pieces, which is how the hat broke, which honestly, that was gonna happen. We all saw how flimsy it was. I sanded them down, which helped make them look a lot neater. They are still pretty funky, I won't lie, but I'm just gonna say that it like adds charm. That's how I'm gonna get around it. It looks nice. But I realised that there would be a lot of the pink showing because they hadn't, the pieces, the 3D pieces didn't fit exactly as I had intended, so I covered up the parts on the coaster that needed covering, and then I got to painting the clay pieces. This was so easy with these pens. The only tricky part is because this was air dry clay, it did kind of seem like it was reactivating a little bit, which at times clogged the nibs, so I had to clean them. When I got to doing the ruffles, I wanted the insides to be purple, and I couldn't really get in there with the pen nib. And this is where the refill came in so handy. I could just pour it on and then swish it around with the paintbrush. Just a couple drops had such amazing coverage that I didn't have to use nearly as much as I worried I would have to, and I still have tons of that purple paint left over. So again, I was pretty much sticking to the colour scheme that I had done in the book, except there were a couple places where I tried to blend things and make a gradient, because obviously this is a 3D piece, so it's not as easy as just treating it the way I did the flat piece. I had to try and blend a couple things here and there, but for the most part I tried to give it like a flat texture, and I really like how that looked. I think it looked really nice on the 3D-ness, having like the lines for shading. On the hat, I did do the yellow and orange thing that I had done in my book, but I later changed that because it just doesn't look as nice in this format. I think it looks better on the page because the whole thing is 2D. I then start gluing down the pieces with this super old glue. It is yellow at this point, but it works really well, so like there's no point throwing it away. It is still really strong glue despite being super old. I then decided I wanted to use the star and the sparkle for the clown piece because I felt like he was kind of missing some stuff. So I coloured them in and stuck them in around him, and I really like what they add to his piece. And because they are 3D, it just looks really cute with the other 3D elements. So I'm really happy with that. Yeah, now I'm covering up the extra pieces and instead putting some little stars on his hat to give it just a little bit more, but nothing too crazy. I then go in and add a couple sparkles all around the piece because I really like how this looks, and I think it gave it a little extra detail that it was missing. So now that the mouse is finally dry, I also sanded him down, which is how his tail broke. This is fine, it can be fixed later. So I started by just colouring in his fur and trying to blend it whilst also giving it a kind of 2D vibe, like I said I tried to do with the clown boy. He has a lot of little places that are hard to get into, so using the brush was necessary for this piece because, like I said, these pens are great for giving larger coverage, but for those little areas they are pretty much impossible to get into. But I was really happy with how these pens were working on this. For whatever reason, I decided to give him these little weird coloured pieces on his back, just where the shadows are, because I thought it would be more interesting. And I also gave him some little fur texture with a light blue, just because I wanted him to look illustrated. Even though he's like a 3D piece, I just wanted him to have illustrated vibes, and that's what I'm doing with his hat as well. So I put down the yellow base and then I went in with an orange colour to act as like shading, and I did it in a very flat way because I just like how it looks. I think it looks really cute on 3D sculptures. I then went in with my thin brush to add his eyes and his whiskers, and like I said, I also added some extra fur details, and I love it. I think it looks really cute. I added some shading to his hat using this purple, which I think adds a nice balance with the colours I've used for him. And yeah, I'm really happy with how he turned out. I then got to doing his base again, this time completely different to anything I had planned in my book. I didn't plan this anywhere, I just went on a whim. I wanted his base to be darker because previously I think they had all been too light. So I went with this blue because I thought it would look really nice with the cream that I had used for his body and the red I'd used on his hat. I used a green that again I think would look really nice, a dark purple, and then a red to kind of tie it into the red on his hat. Once that had dried, I then glued him down with my old glue, and you can see the grossness of the inside of his body, and I just plopped him on in the middle, and he sits really nicely. So to finish these off and to stick the broken parts back on, I decided to resin these pieces. I thought this would work really nicely to hold everything together, to keep the paint safe and so that it won't chip. And like I said, this was also a really convenient way to stick everything back together. Starting with the sparkle on the end of the clown's hat, I just put a dollop of resin on and then cured it, and it was super strong. It's not coming off anytime soon now. I then went in and covered everything in resin using my disgusting resin brush, which works perfectly, but it is kind of yucky. And I just did it in stages for the clown boy. I started with his hat, Then I did the stars and sparkles, and then the base of the coaster, followed by the ruffles. That just made it a lot easier to do. I then did the same thing with the tail, where I put a dollop of resin on and cured it against where it would come out on the other side of his head, and this worked perfectly. And yeah, then I just covered him with resin. I wanted to show you more of this, but my camera unfortunately died. So, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I just covered him with resin. And he was kind of tricky to get all the resin into the gaps with, so it might be a bit splotchy and there might be some gaps where the resin didn't get to, but for the most part he is covered and he is preserved, so he's fine. I'm happy with it. If there are some splotches, some flaws, I don't mind. I think it looks nice. I really like how they turned out. And I really like how shiny they are. It kind of makes them look like porcelain almost, but they are very secure and sturdy. He is unfortunately heavier now, which means I can't hang him on my wall like I planned to do, because I was kind of hoping to like drill a small hole or something and just hang him on my wall, but that is not going to happen now because he is too heavy and I'm too scared that he will fall off and smash. Yeah, I am so happy with how they turned out. I think the pens worked perfectly on both of these. I just really wanted to give a sort of variety of how these pens would work. They held up pretty well. I have these other coasters. This one I didn't even bother showing in the end, but this was another idea that I had for putting the mouse on, but I didn't like how bright it was. It was going to be too much brightness, and like I said, I think the darkness just contrasts really nicely with him, so I have these two coasters now. This one I like way more. This one, I don't know, it kind of gives Spider-Verse vibes. And for some reason the yellow is showing up green on the camera, so that looks even worse. I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. Maybe they'll just be normal coasters. I really enjoyed these pens. I again am in love with how Ohuhu just wants to make everything like refillable so that you don't constantly have to keep throwing things away and buying new ones. You only ever have to buy like one set of these pens and then you can just keep refilling them with the paints that they provide. So if this is something that you are interested in, you can check the description below for links to the pens and the refills. But yeah, I had so much fun with this video. I love sculpting and I would like to do more sculpting on this channel in the future. So yeah, I want to say a massive thank you to Ohuhu for sending me these to try out. As always, a massive thank you to my patrons: Dispe, Grim Clow, The Waffle of Life, Non-Toxic, Saint Nick's, LP, Kira May, Kay, Joanna, Mila, Pretty Rotten, Quiet Rot, Joanna Snake Moon, Humble Frogs, Local Fish Keeper, Mould Ghoul, Farraware, Sun Arts, Molly Marula, Scout Radley, Sammy Bear 127, Kenzania, Arrow, Charlie, Malorus, Coda, Cindy King, Art by Lavender, Angela's Weird Tales, Rainbow Tea, Breaded Nuggets, Learns, Humani, The Moth Bug, Nox, Catbird House, The Tormented Shadow, Sweet and Hopeless, Pocket, Jordan's Tiny Planet, The Coffee Rain, Black Jackal Art, Leela Loves You, Faith, A. Wendu, Ronnie, Olivia Gadbor, Feather, Cheris Needham, Rotting Lettuce, Binixery, Mottled Pixel, Malbon Designs, Gamut Girl, Solar Tortoise, Auden, Red S Lily, Hayley, Sienna G, Lady Ratbird, Fia, Greenfinch G Illustration, Lynn, Cody, Kaleidoscope Arm, Cloud, Cleofix, Redders, Ziutka, Beetle Ghost, Melisandra Sinclair, Bria Washington, Hurrier, June, Dakota Garcia, Manon, Lily Likes Art, Rona, Levi, Kira's Cozy Corner, Tink, Daniel McGuinness, Janine, Dios Live, K2, Flossie, Stegosaurus, Yoinks, Soundly Manners, Stoyan, Bleety, Spooky Chloe, Starry Fern, Kiki, Nuclear Nail Bomb, Brianna, P. Wright Stuff, Reg Norway, JGP, Spaceman Theo, Slurp, Nosebridge, Cherry, In the Clouds, Quill, Nowil, Saturn, Saturn's War.jpg, Bunny Bee, Samara, One Joltaire, Lee H, Jen B. Burning, Fenray, Cinderus, Mon, I Like Tea and Pokemon, Kino K, Bland Polecat, Destiny, Kaya D, Jamie, Riggs M23, Lolly, Kendall Collins, Mel Vogel, Lily Lelkels, Lex, Vienne, Dean Marie, Jadan, and Minwa. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and I should hopefully have another video out for you guys soon, so I will see you then.